talents in the game. He took Josh Gordon, he took Tyrann Mathieu under his wing, and he mentored him from day one after he picked up that team. It was just fortuitous, as a fortuitous bounce of the ball that he was in the Cardinals' lab with Patrick Peterson, and away we go. So I think it's important to have guys around you, your associations, who make sure you stay on the straight and narrow, who instill in you that sense of responsibility. And I think that's the key issue here is within a year. I would have been, as a young man, he got suspended, felt like he was wrong. Probably as a young man, I know I would have been thinking this, oh, kick me out? All right, I'm going to show you something right now. I'm going to go and party like I had no party before. And then when that's over, you still got to get yourself right so you can play football for somebody. I think the Browns did a good job at not cutting him. I know Chris Carter was screaming from the housetops that they should cut him. But what worked for Chris may not necessarily work for Josh. So I think what's happening now over the next year, Josh Gordon has to prove to himself mostly, and then to all the other people looking, that he can be productive aside from marijuana, unless he moves to Amsterdam or something and hangs out with Kumar Patel and his boy Roldy. That's the only way he's going to be a productive member. Hey, is if he, searches and understands either going to be a football player or a dope smoker. As simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we've mentioned him before on the show, but, looking at Ricky Williams, you've seen the 30 for 30 on him. He decided for a while, hey, I don't want to play football. I want to smoke. I want to be in this environment, holistic medicine and all of that. And then he eventually decided, I kind of miss playing that football thing. And then he got his priorities right and knew that while he played. But I mean, like you said, regardless of what the NFL needs to change, and I agree that when you reach a point in society, no matter what your compass tells you, what mine says, what Joe Blow says out there, when you have it becoming legal in some states, obviously the NFL needs to get ahead of the curve in the next few years, because that is going to continue to grow and it's going to need to be dealt with. But none of that boils down to the situation with Josh Gordon. And on top of that, he's got other things to deal with outside of this too. I still say that depending on how it gets adjudicated in the courts, he may get reinstated only to face another 2-game suspension to start next season because of the DWI.
Well, I want to make this clear. Just because everybody goes one way, I can still hear my mother saying it. If all your friends jumped off a bridge, are you going to jump too?
Yeah, I agree.
Just because the move in America, marijuana legal, doesn't mean I agree with that move, nor do I agree with those people. However, it would make sense for the NFL to, if they're going to be all things to everybody. I've lost it. Is a group of 32 robber barons, of 32 feudal landlords who do what they want to do, if they want to do to whomever they want to do it. The NFL is the biggest communist state outside of Moscow. Of course, the shit, everything, but they also administer everything. I mean, across the country, they're the most powerful company in America. Forget Microsoft, forget all of those other ones. It's the National Football League. Why? Because of the money that it generated, because of the influence they wield. So if public influence, if public opinion says, well, nothing's wrong with marijuana, even recreationally, and that's the move in the country, they probably would do themselves a service from a public perception standpoint of easing their restrictions for their football, for their employees, for players, whatever. I'm not saying I get high. I'm not saying I smoke dope. I've never smoked dope. That's not my thing. I don't understand it. But if they're going to be all things to all people, they're going to have to consider that and consider their stance as it relates to their players and employees.
Yeah, and we've already heard it spoken about that is going to be something that gets addressed when you get into, new collective bargaining agreements and all of that. And, I'm telling you, it's going to end up being the trade-off for being able to test for human growth hormone. I can see that war being waged at the next one, and that's the give-in that the NFL will give if the players' union gives in on the HGH testing. I could truly see that being the trade-off, is maybe not completely eliminating the testing for it, but really changing the standards and making the thresholds much, much higher. I mean, even taking all the other stuff out of the equation, I will give credit to the argument that the NFL's threshold is the smallest of every sport, and it's 10% of what the basic Olympic level standard is. That's definitely a significant difference between the other sports. So there's wiggle room for football, and I think they're going to use that to balance off perhaps getting the players to give in on the HGH testing.
Yeah, they may do that. But I think this case, it's quite likely that aside from issues, social issues also.
And I'll tell you, we haven't even touched on the further reaching of whether Josh Gordon decides to go into the legal courts to do this. And, we talked a bit about this yesterday, looking at, even when you look back at the guys from Minnesota, you keep in mind, you go, okay, well, they appealed. They got 2 years of playing out of it before they eventually had to serve their suspension. But to me, if I'm Josh Gordon, there's a difference between going, okay, if we lose, we're going to have to serve a 4-game suspension. If you lose, whether it comes 6 weeks, 6 months, or 2 years from now, you're still missing that whole year no matter what. Do you want to go play one more season and then have the rug pulled out from you again, or do you just start dealing with your punishment now? Plus, the NFL, there's no way that they're going to look kindly on a collectively bargained deal being taken into court.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That's what they do.
Do you think he attempts to get an injunction? Because that would possibly allow him to play now, but I don't know if it's the smartest thing for him to do.
You know what? I'm told that the Browns were hopeful all along that it would be an 8-game suspension. There is a cacophony of people rising in the country, even as we hear today, that what happened to Gordon has been patently unfair, from the differentials in the 2 tests to how long it took them to administer it, to the unfairness to the Browns. So people are talking about that. I really don't have a sense that he's going to grieve it to that degree, because he's already grieved it in the process of the National Football League. So for him to grieve it legally outside of the process would be akin to declaring all-out war.
Yep.
And so I think if you can declare all-out war, but you better be ready to not if you lose in a year. That's what I'm saying, because the NFL can be very punitive when their wishes are gone against. So if I were Josh, if I were his president, if I were the Browns, I would proceed very carefully with litigation outside of the NFL's accepted bargain for process.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, if Josh Gordon sues the league, he truly needs to stop smoking pot, because if and when he does come back with that up to 10 tests a week or a month or whatever it is, it won't be up to. It will be everything that we can legally give you. You will be tested at every corner, every opportunity we get to catch you again. So at that point, it would be in his best interest to be clean for the rest of his career. Don't take an aspirin, because if you do, they're probably going to find it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. The tester will be knocking on your door 6 o'clock in the morning. 5 days a week, I'm telling you. But, well, you know what? At the end of the day, he's not part of this discussion right now. Browns have to get ready for Pittsburgh. They have not done a good job of that so far. They have one last chance tonight. What are you looking to see, if anything, here tonight to make you feel a little bit better heading into Pittsburgh? I'm not happy already that they're going to put a short leash on the starters. I know that you got to be careful not hurting these guys, but the Browns aren't the team that cannot play these guys a little bit more than everybody else.
Well, honestly, as optimistic as I was in the preseason, that optimism has faded. It's not a fandom. I'm not a fan. I'm an impartial observer of what they do. While they've made some nice moves in the off season, I don't think they've made enough moves to forward teams consistently in the AFC North. I'm in the process of putting together my NFL preview by division as the Northern Fan Digital Network. That was a shit plug.
It's all good.
I'm understanding that the Browns are really not prepared for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though the Steelers have not been great in this preseason, they have enough talent to beat the Browns. And the things I was coming into this season, of that back seven, the thing has been horrendous. The coverages in the limited time I've seen, the number ones have not been good. Even though they have, as opposed to better talent, the backing play has been sketchy at best, and there is no rush from the right, the quarterback's blind side, where there needs to be tremendous pressure. Just some problems that I see to bounce and move the ball or have it. And Mitchell Schwartz is a mental mess right now. I add to that the fact that the quarterback situation is up in the air. I still say Brian Hoyer is looking over his shoulder, because let's figure this out. They play Pittsburgh, New Orleans, and Baltimore. Have a Tennessee, Pittsburgh again. I don't know whether they don't go 0-6 before they start to get their bearings. So I'm not very optimistic as to the Browns' opportunity to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New Orleans Saints and the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll have to see how it turns out. I think I can. A friend of mine came over to my house yesterday, and we were looking at the schedule, and you're 2-14. Now, he's not a guy who's given to ridiculous ratings, but I assure you that 2-14 is not far off from what I saw. I might see 5, maybe, but they don't have their minds. Here's what's going to have to happen. Brian Hoyer is going to have to, first of all, be better than we've seen. Second, Miles Austin and Nate Burleson are going to have to stay healthy. Number 3, they're going to have to identify, and this is why people are saying, I don't believe it, but they're saying that against the Bears is important, because they're going to have to have a young receiver who can play on the field. They have to back Johnson, being of those young receivers. The fourth thing, the running game is going to have to be on point, because they're going to have to eat clock, keep the defense off the field, and put the team in good situations. And number 5, whoever on defense, whether it be Carlos Dansby, who seems to be on forward right now, whether it be Joe Hayden and Justin Gilbert or Dante Whitner, they're going to have to make big plays on a regular for this team to achieve all that they think that they can achieve. And while this team is repairing and getting better, Maybe that'll take the whole. Maybe won't be enough to carry them to a 500 or better season. But those are going to be the things that are going to have to happen for this team